Hey everybody, it's Austin Solomon, and this week's episode of The Real is one like we haven't done before. It's a little more lighthearted. I hope that this will make you smile and maybe just provide a little bit of joy in your day. So, okay, these are the two craziest showings I think I've been on. There's so many stories and interesting things that have happened in my 4.5 years as an agent, but here's two that have stood out. So. All right, here's the first one. We'll call this the country spook. So there's the stage. It's the winter of 2018, and I'm working with a buyer, great buyer, looking for his first house, and it's about. We scheduled this showing for about 7:30 at night. It's the middle of winter. It's Wisconsin, probably 0 degrees, and we drive out to this property. It's way out in the country, and when we arrive, there's just not there's not a light on in the place. It's just pitch black. Dakota, my teammate, was with me. He was just kind of with me, shadowing me a little bit how some of these showings go. As this was a year or so ago, and it's 7:30 at night, pitch black. We go into the house, we turn all the lights on, and the house is actually pretty nice. Like, it's move-in ready. Everything looked good. I'm like, man, this is exactly what he's looking for, and it's priced really well. I'm like, this is going to be a slam dunk. So we're showing the house. We go through everything. Everything looks good, and I'm thinking, like, man, he's going to write an offer on this house. Then we go down to the basement, and I'm turning on the lights, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, stone foundation, looks fairly decent. Couple cobwebs, but nothing out of the usual. It's dry. And so I turn and look at my buyer, and he's got this like look on his face that I couldn't really read. And he goes, there's something going on down here. And I'm like looking around. I'm like, there's nothing going on down here. And he's like, there's something here. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, what? Like, I'm here. There's nothing here. Like, looking around, there's nothing. And so we I'm all of a sudden I'm turning off the lights down in the basement. I'm like, man, I thought this was like going to be the perfect house for the guy. Like, it meets all of his criteria, but now that he didn't like the basement, how it felt. So anyway, we go to the next house, and Dakota, I kind of turned to Dakota, and I'm like, hey, what is this buyer thinking? Like, there was, he felt weird in the basement. Like, there was something there, like some spirit or something. And Dakota's like, dude, I'm not really into that kind of stuff, but he's like, even I thought there was something going on down there. And I was like, holy smokes. So I don't know. I typically don't get into that kind of stuff, but Dakota's like, yeah, that was weird. Like, it was just a weird feeling down in that basement. He's like, so I don't know. I typically don't get into that kind of stuff, but I didn't feel anything, but it was kind of crazy. Two people, old country house, I don't know, just kind of a crazy story. It makes you wonder. Okay, story number 2. It's another country house, right? Like, there's nothing, it's got to be out in the country if it's interesting. So, story number 2 is brand new house hits the market. I reach out to my buyer. I'm like, yeah, we got to get in this house. It's perfect for you. We go, we drop everything. We're like there in 2 hours before it hits the market. And it took like an hour to get there. So we were like right there. So we get to the house. It's just me and the buyer. The buyer's family couldn't go, so it's just us two. And we open up the lockbox, and the key doesn't work. Like, I'm fidgeting with the door, and it doesn't work. So I call the listing agent. I'm like, hey, this key doesn't work. Is there any alternative? Any hidden keys? She calls the seller. Calls me back. Nope. There's nothing. I really apologize. Great. So we came all this way out, don't have a key. So I'm walking around the house. I'm like, hey, I'm going to check the patio door. I'll check the service door to the garage. And then I see that there's like a dog kennel, and there's like this probably a 1.5 foot dog door into the garage. And I mean, I was really, I came all the way out here, and we really wanted to get into this house. So I called the listing agent. I'm like, hey, there's a dog door that goes into the garage. I know this is a little bit crazy, but can I go through there? And it was a little bit wet out, so it was definitely like it was definitely like something I didn't want to do, because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get into this small door without getting my like dress pants all, dirty and stuff like that. So, but I got permission. I talked to the buyer. I'm like, hey, we're going in. What was going through my head is I'm like, well, with my luck, the door between the house and the garage is probably going to be locked, but let's give it a shot. So I'm like maneuvering, I'm shaking through this little dog door. And I was able to like kind of maneuver and get into the garage. And the door between the house and the garage, it was open. So it was fantastic. So I was able to get in, let the buyer in. And within 3 minutes, the buyer's like, hey, this is way too small for us. So kind of a funny story. Like they didn't end up buying it, but it was just kind of crazy. Like how we got into that house, how we made it happen for them. It was pretty interesting. Crazy thing is these buyers actually ended up buying a house like just a couple down, not too like a couple months later. So I don't know, maybe that little extra effort just kind of left a positive vibe in the buyer's mind for that area. So 2 craziest showings that I've conducted. There's been tons of other stories, but just thought I'd share those with you. Hopefully that'll just give you a little boost in the mood today. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you later.